Hi, and thank you for joining me. I'm going to do a card made with the poinsettia petals and the Very Versailles stamp sets using Whisper White paper. I'm going to get started, and I was setting up my workspace with the foam pierced mats underneath. So I'm grabbing the Bashful Blue cards or color and Stampin' Up, and using that larger image in the poinsettia petals, I'm going to sort of randomly stamp, but kind of in a cross pattern across the full sheet of Whisper White paper. So my these one sheet wonders have really just been perfected by Ruth, Trice, Magnus from Artful Stamping. And so now what I'm going to do is come in with the berries stamp, and I'm stamping that in real red. Trying to make sure, I know already how I'm going to cut this up, so I want to make sure that enough of those red berries shows in each one of the 4 quadrants of that paper, so that the berries will show up in all of my cards. So that's why I have some extras around the edges. So cleaning that off so I don't get any red ink on my projects as I go. And now I'm filling in the berries with Poppy Parade ink. So just a slightly lighter shade, but still bright color of red. My goal here is to create a vintage looking Christmas card, and this was inspired by Esther at Stampin' Star Creations. Actually, Ruth and Esther are sisters, which is cool. They are both extremely talented. You should check out their channels. So the color and kind of the pattern and using the Very Versailles was definitely inspired by Esther. She did a gorgeous one today on YouTube with Beautiful Friendship, I believe. Yeah. So now using the script image from Very Versailles, I'm stamping that in Sahara Sand ink. Some of them are stamped off a second time. Some of them are full strength, but I'm also stamping very lightly. Now I'm going to use that viney, branchy image from Very Versailles as well, and kind of filling in the blank areas. I don't want it to be really a dominant part of the imagery, so I'm kind of going light and doing some second generation stamping there as well. So the paper is starting to fill up. I'm going to come in now with the smaller leaf image, stamping in Pear Pizzazz, and each one of these I will be stamping twice, just kind of tilting the leaf a little to the side so that I get a little more depth of color where those leaves are. It's a little harder for me to decide where the leaves go because of the pattern, kind of random pattern that I have going here, but doing my best. Trust me, this always works out better once you start cutting the paper up. If you get a really beautiful one sheet wonder and you're like, oh, I can't cut it. Yeah, sometimes that's hard, but most of the time I find that I like my images much better after I start cutting them up and making cards out of them. So now here I've grabbed the mask and I'm using a makeup brush to apply color randomly, and just kind of filling up the white spaces that I see near the images. Don't want too much, so I'm just doing little spots of it here and there. As you see, the one sheet wonder is starting to fill out. It's just the kind of vintagey background that I was looking for these cards. I have to make about 13 of these cards, so this will be a nice way for me to get a beautiful image done quickly. I am going to add a lot of extra little details to this card, so it's going to slow me down later, but I hope that you like it. And if you've noticed anything so far that you've liked of this video, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. So what I'm doing now is cutting up some real red cardstock, and I've cut it to 4 by 5 1/4, 4 sheets of that, and then I have 4 Whisper White thick card bases ready to put my images on. So those were the standard size 8.5 by 11 cut in half and then scored also with my paper trimmer. So I'm cutting the panels that I originally just cut to 4.5 by sorry, 4¼ to 5½. And now I'm cutting those down to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, so that I get just a thin outline of the real red paper showing, so as I layer that up. And just getting all 4 of those done. Notice that I'm checking them with the real red to make sure that I've cut that to the right size. So now I've grabbed my Big Shot and using a piece of Pear Pizzazz and the leaf image, one of the holly leaf images, the smaller one, from the poinsettia dies set that coordinates with the poinsettia petals, and then the medium-sized poinsettia flower. I am going to be cutting 2 of each of these. That middle section that goes in the die gives a little bit of embossing. So you'll see the embossed image in the middle of the leaves. So you do have to get this lined up so that it fits. So I made a Sharpie mark across the leaves so I would know how to put those in together each time. But you don't have to get it in there perfectly because this is going to emboss right in the middle of the leaf. So I have 2 of each of those, and notice that I use the real red paper that I'm going to layer with so that I waste less. I'm taking my makeup brush and sponging the edges of all of my pieces. Now I'm going to sponge the leaves of the poinsettias and my holly leaves, and that is going to make that embossing stand out a little more. You can really see it a lot better in real life. They're very, very pretty. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of that distressing or adding color to the edges of my Whisper White, since I've added that vintagey feel to everything so far. And now just using a little bit of mono liquid adhesive, adding those 2 layers together, and now adding a bit of the scallop lace with my Stampin' Seal Plus. I used my mat to line that up evenly, and now that's ready to go on my card front. I'm going to take the Wink of Stella and squeezing a little bit into the barrel and then just tapping it on the lid to get the Wink of Stella to splatter across my poinsettias. That's going to add some really nice interest and sparkle because I love sparkle, and vintagey can be very sparkly too. Has kind of a shabby chic feel to it, which I love. So now just deciding where I want that flower to go and the holly leaves. So I'm using some glue dots to attach everything together so that then I can just kind of audition it in different places on my card. So I'm going to be adding some Stampin' Dimensionals to the back of the poinsettia. I'm going to glue the holly leaves down flat, and I'm going to add 2 layers of one layer of dimensionals on the flower that's going to touch is closest to the paper, and then 2 layers of the tiny dimensionals on the layer that is on top, so that the top layer is even a little higher than the lower layer. So it adds some really nice dimension onto your card. I am not going to put a greeting on the front of this card. I may to some of them, but I really like it just on its own. I can put whatever greeting, because this is a swap. If the people I send this to, if they choose to use it for a Christmas card, they could stamp Merry Christmas. If they want to use it after Christmas for a thank you card, they could do that. So I am using the gold glitter